Yeah, we definitely need to ask questions, be better prepared, because the more prepared we are, we can objection block ahead of time.
We got to diagnose before we prescribe, right? I think about that all the time. You have to diagnose the patient before you're like, here, take this pill, or here, let me put a cast on your arm. It's like, my arm's not broken.
Because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
We're live, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's not snowing yet, but it will be snowing in Denver, where Brandon is from. Brandon, thanks for joining us today, man.
No, thanks for having me. I'm super excited and love the community that you guys have built, and hopefully I can help some people.
Thanks, man. Well, so we're going to be talking about how to win the listing, but first, do you typically wear vests?
Not on listing appointments. Yeah, when it's a snow day like today here in Denver, some of our agents, depending upon, will, but no, not typically. This is more lead gen in the office, and then everyone brings a suit coat and a shirt.
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah, we're not that cool yet.
Dude, well, look, the dress code, I think, really goes two directions. One, where you're located, it matters, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the other part is also based on how you feel about how you dress, right?
Sure.
So it's a slight combination of both.
Yeah, I tell everyone, especially, you're a walking billboard. So if I'm going to go in and handle someone's $1 million asset, and I'm about to receive $30,000+ for doing that, am I going to show up in jeans and a polo? If that's the right fit for you, maybe. For me, I've always said, again, the seller's watching and judging every single aspect of you, down to the jewelry you have, to your fingernails being clipped, to I always, we teach this a lot, and I go, what you don't realize too is, you think you smell good, you might not smell nice to the, and not in a bad way. It's like some people have so much Axe body spray on that the seller's sitting there and their eyes are watering. And I'm like, look, that works for the club, but not for the listing appointment, right? Like, you just want to be a chameleon to that seller. So yeah.
That's so good. What works for the club doesn't always work for real estate.
Or maybe it doesn't work in either. I don't know.
All right, well, let's get right into this. How to win the listing in any market and really be the expert. And this is why we come to you, Brandon. This one's brought to you by RedX. We both use RedX.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, so what I give a lot of thought to this, and I took a lot of time meeting with the top agents in the nation, and what they all told me, Tristan, was to really be successful at winning any listing consultation, you have to first and foremost understand the seller's problems, and that those problems change over time. So, problems last year in some markets are completely different than the seller problems this year. And what I find is some agents use the same canned consultation in any market, right? They learned it when they first came in. They go, I got my listing presentation or consultation. I've got this, I do it this way. And I go, ... And it's not about the seller. It's so much more about themselves. And so if we don't first start from all the top agents, and even in our organization, we go, let's first do a diagnostic and find out what's the seller's issue. Is it right now, for example, in Denver, that days on market is starting to increase and average price points dropped $100,000 in the last 9 months, right? The median price point. So now when your problem used to be multiple offers and driving up this price, and then you had problems of appraisal and all of these things and gap coverage. Now it's, how do you create buyer urgency when everything on the news is telling every single buyer, interest rates, wait, you should wait. And this is, all of this. So I think understanding the seller problems versus seller market versus buyer market, it's a critical place to start.
That's so true. What a great point, man. I think we overlook that because as agents that are starting off at the very beginning, you're like, well, I just want a listing presentation. And the challenge is that as you start growing, a lot of us don't look back into the listing presentation and ever change it. So we just show up and we're just reading.
Yeah, you're robotic. I do CMA, net sheets, I do this. Then I try to use my closing, techniques that I learned from Mike Ferry or Tom Ferry, and what I'm trying to drop, these fire, bombs on them, and it's like, yeah. So the thing that I think about to win the consultation is, Zillow has done a lot of surveys on this. The number one thing that this makes a seller decide on selecting an agent above everything else, marketing, experience level, anything else, is trust. So to the fact of, I think it's something like 56% of all sellers said that's the number one thing. Do I trust that person that I'm meeting with? And do I feel, and that's a big word there, do I feel like I can trust them? Because you're about to charge somebody 15, 20, 10, 5, 50, $100,000 to help them get their home sold. If you don't first try to build your consultation around how do I earn and develop trust quickly, because you might only have 30, 45 minutes to do that, then you're going to be in trouble.
Makes a lot of sense, man. I like the trust factor because we sometimes skip over that and go directly into let's just give them the facts. This is what we're going to do. And then it becomes about the agent instead of what you're saying, understand the seller's problems.
Yeah, people make decisions on emotion, not logic. I used to tell this story. I would go into appointments, Tristan, and I would be like, I'm the best. Look at my stats. I'm so cool. And they would be like, yeah. And then I'd get the call back and they go, they went with an agent that was in the business for 2 months and they go, we just felt like it was a better fit. And I'm like, they haven't even sold a house, right? They haven't even sold a house and you're talking about better fit? Because that person took the time to make the emotional connection instead of look at me, and here's what I can do for you. It's, do we both vibe, right? Do we both feel like I'm the best person to help you during this journey? So that reframed how we created our entire consultation. So once we established those seller problems, and first of all, and I always tell agents, write down, every market's different. If you're selling homes in Alaska, the seller problems are probably very different than they are in Naples, Florida, right? So first of all, figure out what the general problems are. Then in your consultation, meaning your phone call prior to the appointment, we have something we call a listing lead trust qualifier, where we have all of these questions where we try to make sure we understand, of course, them, what they want, when they want it, what's the perfect situation, all of that. And then we have 3 animal designators on our sheet. One is tiger, dolphin, and turtle. And I always laugh about this. So like a disc profile, it's like, am I talking to a tiger? Like they just want bam, 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 bam. How much is it going to cost me? When are you going to be done? And how can you get you out of my house? Am I talking to a dolphin? Dolphin is, oh my gosh, look at the drapes. Oh, what do you do for charity? Do you want a glass of wine? Da 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 da, right? The dolphin. And then the third is the turtle. This is your super conservative. They're caring about security, the contracts, the net sheet, the details. So during this consultation, I'm trying to figure out who's the personality style, because that has so much more to do with it than just this robotic presentation. Then we still have a standard framework. Now I know what's going to be important to them when I get there, and how am I not going to irritate them, right? How am I going to build rapport and find a commonality? So if I'm sitting in front of a turtle, right? I'm not going to be sitting there and being like, so like, why did you decide on that paint color and da 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 da. No, that's not generally, and I'm not saying it's a perfect scenario, but the first is we have to understand who we're meeting with. And that's critically important. Then the next thing is after we do the analysis, and we call it, like I said, our listing lead trust qualifier, after you start qualifying them and getting this trust starting to be built, then the next piece is okay, what problems are they facing right now? Maybe they need to sell, but they need to stay in the property for 60 days because they don't have a replacement property. Maybe they have cosmetic repairs. They're going, you know what, Brendan, we need to sell, but the landscaping looks like garbage. We need to paint the purple bathroom back to white. Maybe there's these problems that the home is not in show-ready condition. So do I have a solve for that problem, right? Maybe they're concerned that they have structural issues or the hot water heater is 40 years old. I hope it's not, but 10 years old or whatever it is. And they're going, I'm going to get dinged on this and I don't have a lot of money to spend on repairs. So then once we establish the problems, then we can have a game plan to go into this consultation to make sure we can help solve them. So after I get off the phone with anyone, or whenever I have the ability to set that trust qualifier, I start writing all these out and I go, okay, this is a tiger. Their concern is they need to sell fast. So urgency and speed is everything for this seller. That's their main concern and priority right now, is they need to sell fast because they have a job that they need to be at. So that's what they care about. So I build the presentation, not build, we have a framework, but we go around that.
I have a question. How long have you been doing that?
Sorry?
How long have you been doing the
listing lead trust qualifier? Yeah, the turtle. So a lesson learned after, again, I was a Mike Ferry trained agent, old school Mike Ferry, and I kept going into these appointments. So I was losing, even though I had the stats and the all of these things. I realized probably 5 years ago that I was not doing it right, and tore it all down, rebuilt it from scratch. And then it's been an evolution probably over the last 4 to 5 years of going, how do I make it about them? And how do I identify who I'm dealing with? And that just comes from training. You start understanding personality profiles. The fun thing I love about our business, Tristan, is when you get to a certain point, 99% of it's psychology.
Yep.
It's poker. You're sitting across from that table and it's going, all right, who am I playing it with? I don't want to say against. Who am I playing with? And how am I going to play my hand? And what are they going to do? What are they going to say? Anticipate. A lot of people talk about objection handling. We like to use a word called objection blocking. So in any consultation, if I can already block any of your objections prior to you verbalizing them, I think the rate's something like it's 80% harder to objection handle than it is to objection block. Once I say something out of my mouth like, what's your commission? Or how much are you going to do on marketing? Do you pay for staging? Once that comes out of their mouth, because I haven't set my consultation up correctly to prevent that from happening, I have to do so much more work to win their mind over instead of me setting it up in the standards ahead of time. So I lead them from this stern face to this little happy face place that we're trying to get to, right? Of going, you don't even need to say it. You already know what's coming next because I've set the standards of what's going to happen at our consultation. That was a breakthrough for us. So objection block, don't objection handle.
It's a pretty big breakthrough. I like that. So working objections before they happen.
It's huge. It's huge. So as we started to design that, we knew that, of course, the biggest, and I would say by far the biggest seller problem is always price. No matter what. I mean, it's either, it's always going to come down to, I want more, or also price, I want to pay you less. So we have to always make sure we're framing that consultation around, my favorite word in the world is net. right? It's always about what the seller needs to net, not what my cost or my fee is or what the market says. It's first, let's figure out what do you need to net and walk away with to make sure that you're successful. And then the rest of the time, I'm trying to mitigate you from being in fantasy land to reality. So
I have a question about that. Though. You're gathering information as you're going through this process. Do all of your listing consultations, do all of them get a call beforehand and you go through a set of questions?
Yes, absolutely. I don't want to go into any presentation blind. Now, there's situations where this happens. You talk to an expired this morning at 7:45, and they're like, yeah, I guess come by at 1 o'clock. You might just have to go into it blind in certain scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's some times where you just don't have that ability. But what I find is, if you don't have this, we have a 2-sheet document that we use is, if you don't have it in front of you all the time, our thought process is, how many listing appointments do you need to set that week for your goals to be accomplished? You need to have that many listing lead trust qualifiers printed. They stay on your desk and they're visible. And I know we're traveling, sometimes we take things in the car, they're in your Padfolio. I need to fill out this many for my goals to become a success.
I love that, man. I love that.
So yeah, so try to never go in blind, because if you don't know what you're walking into, I mean, I always tell people, what would you do to prepare for $1 million job interview, right? Like Google calls up and they're like, Tristan, we're going to pay you $1 million plus to come work at Google. Would you spend a little time to review the company, see who the players are? I mean, we search people on LinkedIn, social media. I want to know, am I walking into a guy that's an accountant? If he's an accountant or she's an accountant, my presentation, I better have my numbers right? Is she or whatever it might be. So this research on the front side, I go, every one of these is $1 million presentation, because you don't know if that seller is going to refer you to 50 clients in the future. Even though it might be a $10,000, $20,000 commission now, or $5,000 or whatever it is, what's the lifetime worth of that one meeting, that 1 hour presentation or consultation that you get to meet with that client? And I just think I see so many agents that are just reacting at the last minute, and they go, every time they said a listing presentation, it's like a surprise. They're like, oh my God, I got one. It's like, they're out deep sea fishing and they're like, oh my gosh, he finally hit. It's like, what? No, you're going out. You should, every day it should be the expectation. So are you prepared?
The answer is no. Most of us are not. That's the answer, dude. All right. So what are you drinking? Is that tea, Red Bull?
Yeah, a green tea. I know. Everyone's like, you're drinking beer this early? I'm like, no, it's green tea. There's a little, green tea keeps me.
It was either Red Bull or tea. I didn't see the
No, green tea keeps me going.
All right. And for those listening in, I do have a set of pre-listing questions as well. I dumped them in there.
Nice. Yes.
It just reminded me of that, Brendan, because we definitely need to ask questions, be better prepared, because the more prepared we are, we can objection block ahead of time.
We got to diagnose before we prescribe, right? I think about that all the time. You have to diagnose the patient before you're like, here, take this pill, or here, let me put a cast on your arm. It's like, my arm's not broken. So diagnosing. So then going into price, one of the biggest things that I see agents challenged with is pricing conversations. They usually go into the presentation, some of them are like, so what do you want to sell for? Person's like 500,000 or $1 million, whatever, and they go, okay, cool, all right, it sounds good. Or they go, oh, that's really high. Like, the comps down the street were at 450. You're crazy if you want to list at 500. I've actually heard people say that to a seller, tell them they're crazy, or you'll never sell at that, or whatever it is. You have to role play pricing conversations you'll win or lose that listing on that pricing conversation. And some of the tidbits that I've learned over the time is, when you're doing that initial research, check every website that's available to see what Zillow says it's worth, to see what Redfin says it's worth, to see what Realtor.com says it's worth. This is where the seller's obtaining their information, and it'll give you a gauge of going, even though we know it's not right, it's what the seller's thinking. So I already know what I have to kind of go in and battle against. Or when you're in your consultation, so Tristan, if it was the perfect situation, what would you like to sell the home for so you can move on to Arizona and be happy? What's the exact number that you need? They won't even ask that question. So they're going into these appointments going, I guess we're going to find out, like, why not make it easy on yourself, right? Make it easy on yourself. So one of the things in a shifting market, especially, that I think needs to change in agents' eyes is, we call it a CMA a day keeps bankruptcy away.
That's I've never heard that one before. That's
thank you, right? So so you have to get better at doing CMAs, comparative market analysis. And even if you're not going on listing appointments, email it to someone in your sphere, print it and mail it. What we call an unsolicited market analysis. If you mailed one CMA a day, 5 days a week by email or mail, I guarantee you do that 20 days out of the month, 5 business working days, you're going to set some listing appointments, because your people in your sphere are going to go, either the market's going up and could come down, or it's going down and I need to get out. And it just helps you understand pricing, the market, the graphs, the neighborhoods, the chart, all of these things. So Tristan, it always goes back to, it's just, practice at the level you want to play.
Ooh, so good.
Then the second one is what we call AMA instead of CMA. Are you creating an active market analysis instead of a comparative market analysis? With active market analysis, especially in a shifting market where the prices are falling, we're not looking at the pendings and close. Of course, we're going to look at them, but we're not going to be talking to the seller, because that doesn't matter anymore. I get it, your neighbor sold for $100,000 more than where the market is 6 months ago, but that ship has sailed, right? That is no longer where we're at. So we need to find out, with the active market analysis, who are your active competition if we were to list today, next week, or whenever it is. And with that active analysis, we're going, how do we position you in that conversation so you're the next to sell and not them, right? So you need to be the best value, the best price. We have to take into all those determinations. But I see, Tristan, agents doing full-on appraisals. An appraisal doesn't matter. They're like, Brendan, do you think that the extra garage is worth $5,000? I'm like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because our only goal is to create buyer interest in this property, to create a frenzy to come to their home. If they're not the best overall draft pick, I'm going to take my money elsewhere. Or I'll go look at your home, then I'm going to look at the other two that are a better value and make an offer on one of those two.
Yep.
So why does it matter what closed 2 months ago?
Very true, man. Very true. A question that came up, and I don't know if it's here or on Facebook, but about commission. If you're looking at objection blocking, how do you anticipate the commission question?
I love it. I love it. So in objection blocking, when I set the standard, so the first thing we do is I meet with the seller. We have a whole pre-thing that we do to get to that process. We scout the neighborhood, looking for coming soons, anything that might surprise us. So we're always in the neighborhood 30 to 45 minutes before the appointment. Okay. When I meet with the seller, they're going to go, Brendan, let me show you the house. And I go, you know what, Tristan, I can't wait to see your beautiful home. Maybe sit down for a moment if there's furniture, if it's a vacant property. Can we just take a second to go into the kitchen? I just want to talk to you about a few things and make sure that I understand your goals and that I have clarity on exactly what you want. So then I defuse them. Also, I took control and took power over that, because instead of them showing me around, usually you walk in, they're like, let me show you the house. And you're like, okay, who's in control? The seller, right? So when I set the standards in this meeting where we sit down, one of the standards I let them know and expectations that I set is I go, great. So next, after I go through all their goals, everything, I go, I can't wait to see your home. What I'd like to do first is start on the main floor. Then I'd like to go upstairs. Then I'd like to view if there's a basement, the basement, or whatever the layout of the home is. Then I'd like to do a full 360-degree of the outside of the exterior, which no agent really does. And I'll tell you, that's a big piece. Because people love their backyards, people love that they just got a new roof. People, they had, they planted their first tree with their son or out there, whatever it might be. Agents won't even go around the house. Then I go, after that, I'd like to come back inside, sit down at the kitchen table. Once we do that, I'm going to take you through our program on what we do to help sellers achieve the highest price in the shortest period of time. Then I'm going to take you through estimated net sheets, so you'll know exactly what you're walking away with when it's all said and done. Then we're going to go through the pricing strategy, and then I'll ask or answer any questions. Anything that we need to discuss before we look at the home. So setting that expectation, Tristan, they don't have to bring up commission, because as soon as I let them know that we're going to talk about it at the net sheets, you're going to know exactly what you're walking away with. They go, oh, all right, I'll get them there, right? That's where I'm going to hit them with the commission question. But they're not, because as we do our estimated net sheet presentation, and it is a presentation, I mean, we win or lose not only listings, but our value during that net sheet presentation. And we have a very custom way of doing that. Our minimum commission list side is 3.5%, period. And then we have abilities to go higher than that. But it's how you deliver it. And the estimated net sheet is custom structured that we created to keep them focused on net and not cost. I see agents going in and doing estimated net sheets on this old school thing from wherever, and they're like, they write on there, commission's going to be $120,000. And the seller looks at that and they go, I'm sorry, you want me to pay you, I don't care what price point house you're in, right? So we don't talk about cost, we focus on net, and we have a percentage of our service charge for us to deliver the highest quality to get you the highest net possible.
Yeah, you're leading with the net, which makes a lot of sense, man. At that point, they'll be like, so we're going to get less if we don't do it this way.
Right. And also when they see that big net number, a lot of times that's all their mind is focused on. I'm about to walk away with 190,000, 200,000. Even if it's a tight situation, all right, I'm getting 7,000 to get out of this house. All right, whew, okay. Then you always, since you're so good at practicing this, if objections come up during that time, then you know what to say and how to navigate it, right? And that's a critical piece. One of the things, Tristan, that I think the markets, and I've gotten a lot of heat for saying this, that's going to see a huge change in the market is the buyer side commission, the buyer agency side commission is a choice that the seller gets to decide to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going and spending all my time and I'm working with sellers, my goal is to get what I'm worth. The seller gets to decide what they want to offer as additional compensation to a buyer's agent. Now, we of course advise them the more they offer, the highly likelihood that they're going to have success. But if I get into a conversation and start talking to a seller, I'm going to be navigating that conversation. My piece of the pie is off the table, right? Yeah. That is non-negotiable. And there's ways, you don't just say that, you're like, I don't do that in a meeting. I'm like, we have techniques on how we discuss that, but that's critical, right? And so our net sheets are designed, they're cute, not to say cute, they're friendly, right? Some of these net sheets look like you're getting a bill for your income taxes. I've seen agents use, right? Everything has to be diffused because it's scary, right? Like expenses are scary. How can I make little boxes and little houses on it to make it fun to go, all we're doing here is talking about some numbers to get you where you want to go. Cool? All right. So every piece of this has to be designed with a purpose.
You have an example of your net sheet? That's the question we keep on getting here.
Absolutely. I can give it to you guys after if that's easy. But yes, absolutely.
Awesome, man. We'll post it up. We'll tag you just so people have an example.
Yeah,
as well.
It's a powerful tool.
We've got 2 minutes left here. At the close of what you're doing, if you have the seller leaning more towards saying, let me think about it, I'm not sure, I'm still going to interview other agents, which is it's a normal thing sometimes, right? What do you typically do next on your part to have a higher chance of succeeding here?
The biggest thing we shifted to, Tristan, is instead of trying to close for signatures, we've created what we call an onboarding agreement. So for us, all you're doing is onboarding with us into our sellers program, our listing program, whatever you want to call it. Ours is called Sold in 65. It's a 65-hour process. So we onboard you into our program. So everything leads up to this like a crescendo. It's not, usually we get to this point and we just start taking the order, because when it's done in proper order, think about it, Tristan, instead of going, all right, so now all you need is your signatures on the contract or the listing agreement. I go, you know what, Tristan, the only thing we need to do now is just onboard you into our program, and let's start talking about calendar so we can get everything set up. That little,
Beautiful.
oh,
Beautiful.
oh,
You're a great example of how verbiage and words matter.
at such a high level. It's everything. It's everything we do as professional salespeople is conversations. I get paid a ridiculous amount of money to talk about buying or selling real estate. I better know how to do it.
Yeah, that's so true. We're wordsmiths.
That's
right?
it. That's it. That's it. And people go in and they go, well, my charisma will win it, or my personality, or this. I watch people give up commission because they're friends with people. I go, what did you charge? And they're like, well, I charge 5% because it was, it's my buddy. I'm like, because it's your buddy, you lose this amount of value? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So my goal for all the agents out there is get what you're worth, have a plan, practice that plan, and then deliver it and make sure that you've started first with build trust and solve their problems. If you nail those two and you come from a place of sincerity, all the little techniques and little, what's your best closer for when they say this, you really need them. I'm not joking. You won't. I used to have to use them. That was my bread and butter, as I was like, I'm a closer. Like, I'm about to drop this objection handler. My butt's glued to the seat. I'm not leaving until they say yes. And it was so aggressive, Tristan. I look back and I'm like, what were you doing? Now it's just smooth, and all you need to do is sign our onboarding agreement and take you to paradise. Here we go. Let's go together.
I love that. Well, you're building trust by solving the problems.
That's it.
That really is the key. What area do you cover, or what areas do you cover?
So we're in the entire Front Range, Denver. So Denver, anywhere in the Front Range, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, the Front Range, Denver area.
I love that, man. And how do people send referrals to you? How do people follow you? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so a couple of easy ways. So you can always connect with me at Brendan at brendanbardick.com. That's our coaching website. So brendanbardick.com. Our entire script book's on there. So if you want some of these scripts and techniques, that's all available for free on the website. We also have our Facebook group, which is Brendan Bardick Real Estate Coaching. You can always connect with us there. But yeah, my goal is to just, pay it back. I had so many great people like Tristan and other mentors that in this community that I've learned so much from. If there's anything I can do for anyone, just let us know. We're more than happy to help.
Dude, this is great. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to put up the link to your site right here. So if people do have questions, they can jump in. There it is. Thanks for doing this, man. I feel like we need a continuation to this. So like we've got the win the listing. Now, do you guys also work with buyers, or do you have
absolutely, of course. And it's the same consultation, right? I see people waste so much time with buyers and the frustration. It's like if you would have spent 30 minutes on the front side, you would have saved 16 hours on the back side.
Yeah, I like that.
It's just a consultation. You got to get the standards and expectations set.
Let's set that up for the next time we do this, man.
I love it.
I like to see that side. And then when you have a chance, send us over the net.
I will.
I'll post it into LabCoats, and I'll put a link to your coaching site.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Brendan. I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Great questions too.
Thanks, everyone.